You know, boss, I was scrolling through social media today, and everyone seems so obsessed with being happy.
Ah, the eternal pursuit of happiness. Quite the modern preoccupation, isn't it?
Exactly. But it got me thinking, what actually is happiness? Like, really?
Now that's a question philosophers have been wrestling with for millennia. And I suspect you've been pondering this yourself.
Well, yeah, sometimes I feel happy, but then I wonder if I'm doing it right. Is that weird?
Not weird at all, Claire. You're touching on something profound. The very fact that we question our happiness suggests it's more complex than we might think.
So where do we even start? I mean, happiness seems so personal.
Indeed it is. But here's something fascinating. Humans seem universally driven to pursue it. Have you ever wondered why?
Well, I never really thought about that. I just assumed everyone wants to feel good.
That's part of it, certainly. But from an evolutionary perspective, our drive for happiness likely served a survival function.
Wait, really? Happiness helped us survive?
Think about it this way. Positive emotions like joy and contentment typically signal that we're safe, well-fed, and socially connected.
Oh, like when you're with friends and everything feels right with the world?
Precisely. Those feelings encouraged our ancestors to maintain behaviors that kept them alive. Staying with the group, seeking nutritious food, forming bonds.
So happiness is basically our brain's way of saying, keep doing what you're doing.
In a sense, yes. It's a reward system that reinforced beneficial behaviors. But here's where it gets interesting.
I'm listening.
What we consider happiness today might be quite different from what our ancestors experienced, or even what other cultures value.
You mean happiness isn't universal?
The capacity for positive emotions is universal, but the definition and pursuit of happiness, that's remarkably varied across time and cultures.
Okay, now I'm really curious. How has the idea of happiness changed over time?
Well, let's take a journey, shall we? Ancient civilizations had quite different perspectives on what constituted a good life.
Like how different?
Consider the ancient Greeks. They didn't really have a word that translates directly to our modern happiness.
No way. What did they call it then?
They spoke of eudaimonia, often translated as flourishing or living well. But it wasn't about feeling good in the moment.
What was it about then?
Eudaimonia was about realizing your full potential as a human being, living in accordance with virtue and excellence.
That sounds intense and maybe a little intimidating.
I can see why you'd think that. But consider Aristotle's perspective. He believed happiness wasn't a feeling, but a way of being.
A way of being? What does that even mean?
For Aristotle, happiness was the result of living virtuously over time. It was about character, not circumstances.
So you couldn't just have a happy day? It had to be like a happy life?
Exactly. He famously said you couldn't call someone happy until their life was complete. Happiness was the sum total of a well-lived life.
Wow, that's so different from today. I mean, we talk about happy moments all the time.
Indeed we do. The Greeks distinguished between different types of positive experiences, though.
Different types? How so?
Well, there was hedonia, pleasure and enjoyment, but that was separate from eudaimonia, which was deeper fulfillment.
Oh, like the difference between eating a great meal and, I don't know, achieving something you've worked really hard for?
Brilliant example. The meal gives you hedonic pleasure, immediate sensory satisfaction, but accomplishing a long-term goal might give you eudaimonic well-being.
And the Greeks thought the second one was more important?
Generally, yes. Though they didn't dismiss pleasure entirely, it was more about balance and what leads to genuine flourishing.
This is making me think about my own life. Sometimes the things that make me happiest in the moment aren't necessarily the things I'm proud of later.
Ah, you're discovering the tension between immediate gratification and long-term satisfaction. That's remarkably insightful.
Is that tension something people have always struggled with?
Throughout history, actually. Different philosophical traditions have grappled with this in fascinating ways.
Like who else? Besides the Greeks, I mean.
Well, let's venture east for a moment. Buddhist philosophy offers quite a different perspective on happiness and suffering.
Oh, right, Buddhism. They're all about not being attached to things, right?
That's a simplified version, but you're on the right track. Buddhism suggests that our pursuit of happiness often causes our suffering.
Wait, what? How can pursuing happiness cause suffering?
Think about it this way. When we desperately want something to make us happy, what happens when we don't get it?
We feel disappointed? Frustrated?
Exactly. And when we do get it, how long does that happiness last?
Usually not very long. Then I want the next thing.
You've just described what Buddhists call the cycle of craving and dissatisfaction. The very act of chasing happiness keeps it just out of reach.
So what's the alternative? Just be miserable?
Not at all. Buddhism suggests finding contentment by accepting what is, rather than constantly reaching for what might be.
That sounds difficult. And maybe a little passive?
It's actually quite active in a different way. It requires tremendous mindfulness and self-awareness to break free from habitual patterns of wanting.
I think I see what you mean. Like, instead of constantly thinking, I'll be happy when, you try to find peace with right now?
Beautifully put. This connects to another Eastern concept, the Taoist idea of wu wei, or effortless action.
Effortless action? Isn't that kind of contradictory?
It seems paradoxical, doesn't it? But think of it as acting in harmony with natural flow, rather than forcing outcomes.
Like, going with the current instead of swimming against it?
Perfect analogy. Taoists believed happiness came from aligning with the natural order, not fighting against it.
This is so different from how I was raised. I was always told to set goals and work hard to achieve them.
Ah, yes. That reflects more of a Western philosophical tradition that developed over centuries.
How did Western thinking about happiness evolve? I mean, it must have changed since the Greeks.
Oh, dramatically. Take the Enlightenment period, for instance. Philosophers like Jeremy Bentham proposed a radically different approach.
Who is Jeremy Bentham? And what was radical about his ideas?
Bentham founded what we call utilitarianism, the idea that actions are right insofar as they promote happiness and wrong as they produce the opposite.
So happiness became like a moral goal?
Precisely. He believed we should organize society to produce the greatest happiness for the greatest number.
That actually sounds pretty reasonable. What's controversial about that?
Well, Bentham thought all pleasures were essentially equal. The pleasure from reading poetry was no different from the pleasure of playing a simple game.
Oh, I can see how that might be controversial. Some pleasures do seem more meaningful than others.
Exactly what his student John Stuart Mill argued. Mill distinguished between higher and lower pleasures.
Higher and lower? That sounds a bit elitist.
Mill would say it's not about social class, but about the complexity and depth of the experience.
Can you give me an example?
Mill famously said it's better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied, better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied.
Ouch! That's pretty harsh on pigs and fools.
Perhaps. But his point was that some forms of happiness engage our higher faculties: reason, creativity, moral feeling.
So he's saying that intellectual or moral satisfaction is somehow better than simple physical pleasure?
In Mill's view, yes. He believed humans who had experienced both would invariably prefer the more complex pleasures.
Have you found that to be true in your experience, boss?
I've certainly noticed that the most memorable and meaningful moments in my life weren't necessarily the most immediately pleasurable.
Like what?
Learning to appreciate fine whiskey, for instance. The first sip wasn't nearly as pleasant as a simple sweet drink, but developing that appreciation opened up a whole world of complexity and craftsmanship.
I can relate to that. I used to hate jazz, but now I love it. The happiness I get from listening to a great jazz album feels different from the happiness I get from, say, eating ice cream.
Beautifully illustrated. You've experienced exactly what Mill was describing.
But doesn't that create a kind of hierarchy where some people's happiness is considered better than others?
That's a very astute concern, Claire. It's one of the ongoing debates in philosophy and psychology.
What do modern researchers say about all this?
Well, that brings us to one of the most exciting developments in recent decades, the rise of positive psychology.
Positive psychology? That sounds almost redundant.
I can see why you'd think that, but traditionally psychology focused more on mental illness and dysfunction than on what makes life worth living.
Oh, so positive psychology is about studying happiness and well-being directly?
Exactly. Researchers like Martin Seligman pioneered the scientific study of human flourishing.
And what have they discovered? Is there like a formula for happiness?
Not quite a formula, but they have identified some consistent patterns. Would you like to hear about some of the surprising findings?
Yes, I'm really curious what science has to say about all this philosophy we've been discussing.
Well, one of the most robust findings is that our circumstances, income, marital status, where we live, account for only about 10% of our happiness levels.
Only 10%? That seems impossibly low. I mean, surely being rich makes you happier than being poor?
Up to a point, yes. But the research shows that once basic needs are met, additional income has diminishing returns on happiness.
What's the threshold? Like, how much money do you need to be happy?
Studies suggest that in developed countries, happiness levels plateau around $75,000 to $100,000 in annual income, adjusted for local cost of living.
Wow, that's both higher and lower than I expected, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. It's enough to feel secure and have some choices, but it's not the millions that many people think they need.
So if circumstances only account for 10%, what accounts for the rest?
This is where it gets really interesting. About 50% appears to be genetic, what researchers call your happiness set point.
Wait, we inherit our capacity for happiness? That seems kind of unfair.
I understand that reaction, but think of it more like inheriting a certain range rather than a fixed destiny.
What do you mean by range?
Some people seem naturally inclined toward optimism and positive emotions, while others might be more prone to worry or melancholy. But that's just the starting point.
And the remaining 40%?
That's the exciting part. It's what psychologists call intentional activities, the choices we make about how to think and behave.
So we actually have significant control over our happiness levels?
According to the research, yes, that 40% represents the space where we can actively influence our well-being.
What kinds of activities are we talking about?
Things like practicing gratitude, nurturing relationships, engaging in meaningful work, exercising, meditating, performing acts of kindness.
Those all sound kind of obvious, like things your grandmother would tell you.
Isn't it wonderful when ancient wisdom aligns with modern science? But the research helps us understand why these practices work.
How so?
Take gratitude, for instance. Brain imaging studies show that practicing gratitude actually changes neural pathways associated with well-being.
Really? Gratitude physically changes your brain?
Neuroplasticity is remarkable. Regular gratitude practice increases activity in the hypothalamus and boosts dopamine production.
Dopamine. That's the feel-good chemical, right?
One of them, though it's a bit more complex than that. Dopamine is more about motivation and reward-seeking than pure pleasure.
What do you mean?
Dopamine spikes when we anticipate something good, not just when we experience it. It's what drives us to seek rewards.
So it's like the brain's way of saying, this might be good, pay attention.
Excellent way to put it. And this helps explain why the anticipation of vacation can sometimes be more enjoyable than the vacation itself.
Oh my gosh, yes! I've totally experienced that. Is that normal?
Completely normal. The dopamine system is designed to motivate seeking behavior, so the anticipation phase is often the most dopamine-rich.
What about the other brain chemicals involved in happiness?
Well, there's serotonin, which is associated with feelings of well-being and social connection.
And how do we get more of that?
Interestingly, serotonin levels are boosted by things like sunlight, exercise, and social bonding. Also by acts of generosity.
Acts of generosity increase our own happiness? That seems almost too good to be true.
The research is quite clear on this. What's called the helper's high is a real phenomenon. Helping others triggers the release of endorphins and other feel-good chemicals.
Why would evolution make us feel good about helping others?
Because humans are fundamentally social creatures. Our survival has always depended on cooperation and group cohesion.
So being helpful literally feels rewarding because it helped our ancestors survive?
Exactly. The individuals who found satisfaction in contributing to group welfare were more likely to be accepted and protected by their communities.
This is making me think about my own relationships. The times I feel happiest are often when I'm connecting with people I care about.
That aligns perfectly with what researchers call the social connection theory of happiness.
Social connection theory?
The idea that the quality of our relationships is the strongest predictor of life satisfaction. This comes from the Harvard study of adult development.
Never heard of it. What's that about?
It's one of the longest-running studies in psychology. They've been following the same group of people for over 80 years.
80 years? What have they learned?
The director, Robert Waldinger, summed it up beautifully. Good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period.
Even more than career success or wealth?
The data suggests yes. People with strong social connections at age 50 were more likely to be satisfied with their lives at 80, regardless of other factors.
But what makes a relationship good in terms of happiness?
Great question. It's not just about having people around. The quality matters more than quantity.
What constitutes quality in relationships?
Trust, mutual support, shared experiences, the ability to be vulnerable and authentic with each other.
That makes sense. I have some acquaintances I see often, but I don't feel particularly close to them. And then I have friends I rarely see but feel incredibly connected to.
You've intuitively grasped something important. It's about depth of connection, not frequency of contact.
Is there something special about romantic relationships, or is it all social connections?
Romantic partnerships can be particularly powerful sources of happiness, but they're not necessary for everyone.
What makes romantic love different?
Well, from a neurochemical perspective, romantic love involves a unique cocktail of dopamine, norepinephrine, and oxytocin.
Oxytocin, that's the bonding hormone, right?
Often called that, yes. Oxytocin promotes attachment and trust. It's released during physical touch, eye contact, and other intimate behaviors.
So romantic relationships literally create chemical bonds between people?
In a sense, yes. Though it's worth noting that oxytocin is also released in other close relationships, between parents and children, close friends, even when petting a dog.
I love that. So all meaningful connections involve these same bonding chemicals?
To varying degrees, yes. This is why people who have strong friendships and family bonds can be just as happy as those in romantic relationships.
What about people who prefer solitude? Can you be happy without close relationships?
That's a fascinating question that touches on different personality types and cultural values.
Are some people just wired to be loners?
Some people are more introverted and need less social stimulation to feel content. But even introverts typically need some meaningful connections.
What's the difference between being alone and being lonely?
Loneliness is the subjective feeling of being disconnected, regardless of how many people are around. Solitude can be chosen and rejuvenating.
So you could be lonely in a crowded room but content alone in your house?
Precisely. It's about the quality of connection you feel, not the number of people present.
This is making me think about social media. Sometimes scrolling through Instagram makes me feel more lonely, even though I'm seeing what all my friends are doing.
You've hit on one of the modern paradoxes of connection. Social media can create a false sense of connection while actually increasing feelings of isolation.
Why does that happen?
Several reasons. We're often seeing curated versions of people's lives, which can trigger social comparison. And passive consumption doesn't activate the same bonding mechanisms as real interaction.
Social comparison, that's when we measure our lives against others?
Exactly. And here's the thing about happiness and comparison. It's not just about how well we're doing in absolute terms, but how we're doing relative to others.
Really? So even if my life is objectively good, I might feel unhappy if everyone else seems to be doing better?
Unfortunately, yes. Humans seem to have a built-in tendency to evaluate their situation relative to their reference group.
Reference group?
The people we naturally compare ourselves to. Friends, colleagues, siblings, people we see on social media.
That seems like a recipe for misery. There's always going to be someone doing better than you at something.
Indeed, this is why some philosophers and psychologists recommend shifting focus from external comparisons to internal growth.
What do you mean by internal growth?
Comparing yourself to who you were yesterday, rather than to other people today.
Oh, that's actually really helpful. Like focusing on your own progress rather than your ranking compared to others?
Exactly. This connects to what psychologists call intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation.
What's the difference?
Intrinsic motivation comes from internal satisfaction, doing something because it's meaningful or enjoyable to you. Extrinsic motivation is driven by external rewards or recognition.
And intrinsic motivation leads to more happiness?
Generally, yes. People who are intrinsically motivated tend to experience what psychologists call flow states more often.
Flow states? What are those?
Flow is when you're completely absorbed in an activity, losing track of time and self-consciousness. Everything else just fades away.
Oh, I know that feeling. Like when I'm really into a good book or painting. Is that related to happiness?
Very much so. Flow states are associated with some of the highest levels of life satisfaction people report.
What creates flow?
Usually it's activities that match your skill level with an appropriate challenge. Not so easy that you're bored, not so hard that you're anxious.
That makes sense. I get flow when I'm cooking something just challenging enough to keep me engaged but not overwhelmed.
Perfect example. And notice how flow activities often involve using your strengths and skills in service of something meaningful to you.
Is that related to what you mentioned earlier about meaning and happiness?
Absolutely. This brings us to one of the most important distinctions in happiness research: hedonic versus eudaimonic well-being.
Those sound familiar from our Greek philosophy discussion. Hedonic is pleasure, right?
Right. Hedonic well-being is about positive emotions and life satisfaction. It's feeling good.
And eudaimonic well-being?
That's about meaning, purpose, and realizing your potential. It's doing good or living well.
Are they mutually exclusive? Like, do you have to choose between feeling good and doing good?
Not at all. In fact, research shows they often reinforce each other. But they're distinct enough that you can have one without the other.
What would that look like?
Well, imagine someone who lives a very comfortable, pleasant life but feels like they're not making a meaningful contribution to the world.
Oh, like someone who has everything they want but feels empty inside?
Exactly. They might score high on hedonic measures but low on eudaimonic ones.
And the reverse?
Think of someone working in challenging conditions to help others. Maybe a doctor in a war zone. They might not feel pleasant emotions day to day, but experience deep meaning and purpose.
So they'd be high on eudaimonic well-being, but maybe low on hedonic well-being?
In the short term, yes. Though interestingly, people who live meaningful lives often report higher life satisfaction overall in the long run.
Why is meaning so powerful for happiness?
Meaning seems to provide resilience. When life gets difficult, people with a strong sense of purpose are better able to cope and find reasons to continue.
What gives life meaning, though? Is it different for everyone?
While the specific sources vary, research suggests some common themes: contributing to something larger than yourself, developing close relationships, and personal growth.
Contributing to something larger. Like what?
Could be anything, really. Raising children, creating art, advancing scientific knowledge, helping your community, protecting the environment.
So it's about feeling like you matter, like your existence has some impact?
Beautifully put. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychologist, argued that the search for meaning is the primary human drive.
What did he say about finding meaning?
He believed meaning could be found in three ways: through creative works or good deeds, through encountering values like truth and beauty, and through choosing one's attitude toward unavoidable suffering.
Choosing your attitude towards suffering? That sounds incredibly difficult.
It is. But Frankl experienced some of humanity's worst conditions and observed that those who found meaning in their suffering were more likely to survive and maintain their humanity.
That's both inspiring and heartbreaking. Do you think meaning always requires struggle or sacrifice?
Not necessarily, but adversity does tend to clarify what's truly important to us.
I've noticed that some of my happiest memories involve times when I overcame challenges or helped someone through a difficult period.
That makes perfect sense. Overcoming challenges gives us a sense of competence and growth, while helping others provides connection and contribution.
Are those universal needs, like do all humans need to feel competent and connected and contributing?
Psychologists have identified what they call basic psychological needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness.
Autonomy meaning what exactly?
The feeling that your actions come from your own choices and values, rather than external pressure or control.
And when we satisfy all three needs, autonomy, competence, and relatedness, we're happier?
According to self-determination theory, yes. People who feel autonomous, capable, and connected report higher levels of well-being.
This is making me think about work. I'm happiest at my job when I feel like I have some control over how I do things, when I'm good at what I'm doing, and when I feel connected to my colleagues and the purpose of the work.
You've just described the ideal work environment from a happiness perspective. Many people spend a third of their lives at work, so job satisfaction is crucial for overall well-being.
What makes work meaningful?
Research suggests it's about seeing how your work contributes to something you value, having opportunities to use your strengths, and feeling that your efforts matter.
Is money important for work satisfaction?
Money matters, but probably less than you'd think. Once you're paid enough to meet your needs comfortably, other factors become more important.
Like what?
Autonomy, opportunities for growth, good relationships with colleagues, alignment with your values, and feeling that your work makes a difference.
That's reassuring. Sometimes I worry that I should just focus on making as much money as possible.
The research suggests that's not the path to happiness. In fact, excessively focusing on wealth can actually decrease well-being.
Really? How so?
People who prioritize materialistic goals tend to report lower life satisfaction, more anxiety, and weaker social relationships.
Why would wanting financial security make you anxious?
It's more about the mindset than the money itself. When wealth becomes the primary measure of success, it can create a never-ending cycle of comparison and striving.
Because there's always someone richer?
Exactly, and also because material goods provide temporary pleasure, but don't address deeper needs for meaning and connection.
This is making me think about consumer culture. We're constantly told that buying things will make us happy.
Ah yes, the promise of retail therapy. There is a grain of truth there, but it's more nuanced than advertisers suggest.
What do you mean?
Purchasing experiences tends to contribute more to happiness than purchasing material goods.
Experiences versus things? Can you explain that?
Sure, a vacation or concert creates memories, often involves social connection, and becomes part of your identity in a way that a new gadget typically doesn't.
That makes sense. I barely remember most things I've bought, but I have vivid memories of trips and events.
Plus, experiences are harder to compare with others. Your trip to Paris is uniquely yours, but your phone is the same as millions of others.
So experiences are less likely to trigger that social comparison problem we talked about?
Exactly. They're also less likely to lose their appeal over time. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation.
Hedonic adaptation? What's that?
It's our tendency to return to a baseline level of happiness, despite positive or negative changes in our circumstances.
So we get used to good things?
Unfortunately, yes. This is why getting a raise or buying something you've wanted often provides less lasting happiness than expected.
That seems like a cruel trick of evolution. Why would our brains work that way?
It actually makes evolutionary sense. If we stayed permanently satisfied, we might become complacent and stop striving for improvement or responding to threats.
So hedonic adaptation kept our ancestors motivated to keep seeking better conditions?
Precisely. The problem is that in modern society, this mechanism can leave us perpetually unsatisfied, despite having more comfort and security than any humans in history.
Is there a way to combat hedonic adaptation?
Great question. Researchers have found several strategies that seem to help.
Like what?
Practicing gratitude, savoring positive experiences, and varying your pleasures, rather than always doing the same things.
How does savoring work?
It's about intentionally focusing on and appreciating positive experiences while they're happening, rather than rushing through them.
Like really paying attention to how good your coffee tastes instead of just drinking it while checking email?
Perfect example. Mindfulness practices can significantly slow down hedonic adaptation.
And varying pleasures.
If you always go to the same restaurant, you'll adapt to that pleasure. But if you try different cuisines, each experience stays more novel and enjoyable.
This reminds me of something I've been wondering about. Are there cultural differences in how people think about happiness?
Absolutely. What constitutes happiness and how much it's valued varies dramatically across cultures.
Can you give me an example?
Western cultures, particularly American culture, tend to emphasize individual happiness and positive emotions as primary life goals.
And other cultures don't?
Many East Asian cultures place greater emphasis on social harmony and collective well-being than individual happiness.
What does that look like in practice?
In Japan, for instance, there's a concept called ikigai, roughly translated as life's purpose or reason for being.
How is that different from happiness?
Ikigai is less about feeling good and more about finding your role in the larger community. It's about contribution and meaning, rather than personal pleasure.
That sounds more like the eudaimonic well-being we talked about.
Exactly. Many non-Western cultures have concepts that align more with eudaimonic rather than hedonic approaches to well-being.
Are people in those cultures less happy?
That's a complex question, because it depends on how you define and measure happiness.
What do you mean?
If you measure happiness as the frequency of positive emotions, Western cultures often score higher. But if you measure life satisfaction and sense of purpose, the differences are much smaller.
So it might be that different cultures are pursuing different types of well-being.
That's a very insightful way to put it. And this raises interesting questions about whether there's a universal definition of human flourishing.
Do you think there is? Like, deep down, do all humans want the same things?
I suspect there are some universal human needs: connection, competence, autonomy, meaning. But how these are expressed and prioritized varies tremendously.
This makes me wonder about my own cultural assumptions. I've been raised to think that being happy is like a duty, almost.
That's a very American perspective, the idea that you should be happy and that unhappiness indicates personal failure.
Is that problematic?
It can be. When happiness becomes an obligation, it creates pressure that can actually undermine well-being.
How so?
There's research showing that people who value happiness very highly are more likely to feel disappointed and lonely.
That seems paradoxical. Why would wanting happiness make you less happy?
Several reasons. It can make you overly self-focused, constantly monitoring your emotional state. It can also make normal negative emotions feel like failures.
Oh, like, if I have a sad day, I feel bad about feeling bad.
Exactly. And negative emotions serve important functions. They signal problems that need attention and motivate us to make necessary changes.
So some unhappiness is actually healthy?
Absolutely. Anxiety can motivate preparation. Sadness can deepen empathy and social bonds. Even anger can motivate us to address injustices.
I never thought of negative emotions as potentially helpful.
The goal isn't to eliminate negative emotions, but to develop what psychologists call emotional regulation, the ability to experience emotions without being overwhelmed by them.
How do you develop that skill?
Mindfulness meditation is one of the most studied approaches. It helps you observe emotions without immediately reacting to them.
Like creating space between feeling something and acting on it?
Beautifully put. That space is where wisdom and choice live.
This conversation is making me realize how complex happiness really is. I came in thinking it was just about feeling good.
It's one of the most complex aspects of human experience. We've barely scratched the surface.
What else should I know? Are there other important pieces to this puzzle?
Well, we haven't talked much about the role of time in happiness.
Time. How does time relate to happiness?
Think about it. Are you happier when you're thinking about the past, the present, or the future?
Let me think. Well, I guess I'm happiest when I'm really absorbed in what I'm doing right now. But I also love remembering good times and looking forward to things.
You've touched on something psychologists call temporal focus, where we direct our mental attention across time.
And different time orientations affect happiness?
Indeed. People who spend a lot of time ruminating about the past or worrying about the future tend to be less happy than those who can stay present.
But surely some thinking about past and future is important.
Absolutely. It's about balance and the quality of that mental time travel.
What do you mean by quality?
Well, reflecting on the past to learn from experiences or appreciate memories is different from ruminating on regrets and mistakes.
And for the future.
Planning and anticipating positive events can increase happiness, but constantly worrying about what might go wrong definitely decreases it.
So it's not about living only in the present, but about how we engage with different time periods?
Exactly. Researchers have found that the happiest people tend to have what they call a, quote, a balanced time perspective.
What does that look like?
They can appreciate past experiences without being stuck in them, plan for the future without excessive worry, and engage fully with present moments when appropriate.
That sounds like a skill that takes practice.
It definitely does. And interestingly, different ages seem to naturally develop different relationships with time.
How so?
Young people tend to be more future-focused, middle-aged people often get caught up in present demands, and older adults often become more appreciative of present moments.
Is that why older people sometimes seem more content, like they figured something out?
There's actually fascinating research on happiness across the lifespan that suggests something like that.
Really? I always assumed people got less happy as they aged, because of health problems and loss.
That's a common assumption, but the data tells a different story. There's what researchers call the happiness U-curve.
A U-curve? What does that mean?
Happiness tends to be high in youth, decline through middle age, then rise again in later years.
Why would happiness dip in middle age?
Middle age often involves peak responsibilities, career demands, raising children, caring for aging parents. Plus, it's when the gap between youthful dreams and reality becomes most apparent.
And why does it rise again later?
Several reasons. Older adults often have fewer social pressures, more emotional regulation skills, and what psychologists call socio-emotional selectivity.
What's socio-emotional selectivity?
As people become aware that time is limited, they prioritize emotionally meaningful experiences and relationships over superficial ones.
So they get better at focusing on what really matters.
Precisely. They also tend to remember positive experiences more than negative ones, which is called the positivity effect.
Is that just rose-colored glasses, or is there something deeper happening?
It seems to be a genuine shift in cognitive processing. Older adults' brains show different patterns when processing emotional information.
Different how?
They show increased activity in areas associated with emotional regulation, and decreased activity in areas that process negative emotions.
So with age, we literally get better at managing our emotions?
The research suggests yes, though it's worth noting that this assumes normal aging without major depression or cognitive decline.
This is actually really encouraging. I sometimes worry that my 20s are supposed to be the happiest time of my life.
That's a common concern, but the data suggests your happiness potential actually increases with age and experience.
Speaking of my 20s, I've been wondering about something. Why do I sometimes feel guilty about being happy?
That's a profound question that touches on both psychology and philosophy.
Sometimes when I'm having a good time, I think about all the suffering in the world and feel bad about enjoying myself.
You're experiencing what some philosophers call the problem of happiness in an unjust world.
There's a name for it? I thought I was just being neurotic.
Not at all. Many thoughtful people struggle with this. Albert Schweitzer wrote about feeling guilty for being happy while others suffered.
What did he conclude?
He believed that happiness creates an obligation, that those who are fortunate should use their well-being to help alleviate others' suffering.
So happiness isn't selfish if you use it to help others?
That's one way to think about it. Happy people often have more emotional and physical resources to contribute to others' welfare.
I never thought of happiness as a resource before.
Consider it this way. When you're in a good mental state, are you more or less likely to be kind, generous, and helpful.
Definitely more likely. When I'm stressed or sad, I tend to get absorbed in my own problems.
Exactly. So cultivating your own well-being can be seen as a form of service to others.
That's actually really helpful. It reframes taking care of myself as not being selfish.
The airplane oxygen mask principle applies here. You need to take care of yourself first so you can help others effectively.
But what about times when pursuing happiness might actually harm others? Like, what if what makes me happy conflicts with what's right?
That's where the distinction between different types of happiness becomes crucial again.
How so?
Hedonic happiness, pure pleasure-seeking, can indeed sometimes conflict with moral behavior. But eudaimonic happiness, flourishing through virtue, aligns with doing good.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, cheating on a test might give you hedonic pleasure from getting a good grade, but it would undermine eudaimonic well-being because it conflicts with your values.
So the deeper forms of happiness actually require being a good person?
Many philosophers and psychologists would argue yes. Aristotle believed you couldn't be truly happy while being vicious or harming others.
Is there research supporting that?
Absolutely. People who behave in ways that align with their moral values report higher life satisfaction, even when those behaviors require sacrifice.
What about people who seem happy but are genuinely selfish or cruel? Do they exist?
They might experience pleasure, but research suggests they typically don't achieve deep satisfaction or resilience in the face of adversity.
Because they lack meaning and authentic relationships?
Exactly. Remember how crucial social connection is for happiness. It's hard to maintain genuine relationships while being consistently selfish.
This is making me think about authenticity. How important is it to be yourself for happiness?
Tremendously important. There's substantial research on what psychologists call authentic living.
What does that mean exactly?
Living in accordance with your true values, interests, and personality, rather than conforming to external expectations.
But what if your true self conflicts with what society expects? Like, what if being authentic makes life harder?
That's one of the central tensions in modern life, and you're right that authenticity can sometimes create short-term difficulties.
So how do you balance being true to yourself with fitting in?
Research suggests that people are happiest when they can find environments and relationships that accept and value their authentic selves.
What if you can't find those environments?
Sometimes people need to create them. This might mean changing jobs, moving to different communities, or gradually building new social circles.
That sounds scary, but also liberating.
Change often is both, but consider the alternative, spending your life pretending to be someone you're not.
When you put it that way, the risk seems worth it. Is there research on the cost of inauthenticity?
Yes, and it's significant. People who constantly suppress their true selves report higher rates of depression, anxiety, and physical health problems.
Physical health problems? How does authenticity affect the body?
The stress of maintaining a false persona creates chronic activation of stress hormones, which can impact immune function, cardiovascular health, and more.
So being fake literally makes you sick?
Over time, it can contribute to illness, yes. The mind-body connection in happiness research is quite robust.
What other ways does happiness affect physical health?
Happy people tend to live longer, have stronger immune systems, better cardiovascular health, and recover more quickly from illness and injury.
Really? Happiness is like medicine?
In many ways, yes. Positive emotions trigger the release of beneficial hormones and neurotransmitters, while reducing stress hormones like cortisol.
Is that why laughter is supposed to be good for you?
Laughter is particularly powerful. It increases endorphins, boosts immune function, and even provides a mild cardiovascular workout.
A workout? How?
Hearty laughter increases heart rate and oxygen consumption similar to light exercise. Some researchers call it internal jogging.
That's amazing. So watching a funny movie is actually good for my health?
In moderation, absolutely. Though it's worth noting that different types of humor have different effects.
What do you mean?
Humor that builds connection and brings joy is beneficial, but humor that's mean-spirited or self-deprecating can actually be harmful.
How is self-deprecating humor harmful? I do that all the time.
Occasional self-deprecating humor can be charming and show humility, but constantly putting yourself down can reinforce negative self-perception.
I never thought about that. I guess I do make fun of myself pretty often.
The key is balance and intention. Are you using humor to genuinely connect with others, or to deflect from deeper insecurities?
Probably both, honestly. Sometimes I make jokes about my flaws before others can point them out.
That's a very human defense mechanism. But it might be worth exploring whether you can be vulnerable without preemptively attacking yourself.
Vulnerability seems really hard. But I guess it's necessary for authentic relationships.
It's paradoxical. Vulnerability feels risky, but it's actually what creates the deepest, most satisfying connections.
Why is that?
When you're vulnerable, you give others permission to be vulnerable too. That mutual openness creates intimacy and trust.
And we know that good relationships are crucial for happiness.
Exactly. You're starting to see how all these elements interconnect.
Speaking of interconnection, I've been wondering about something. Can you be happy in a world that has so many problems? Climate change, poverty, conflict.
That's perhaps one of the most challenging questions of our time.
Sometimes I feel guilty about enjoying my life when there's so much suffering and injustice.
Many sensitive people struggle with this. But consider this. Does your unhappiness actually help solve those problems?
Well, no. But it feels wrong to be cheerful when things are so serious.
I understand that feeling. But what if happiness could be part of the solution, rather than an escape from problems?
How could happiness help solve global problems?
Happy people tend to be more creative, more generous, more collaborative, and more resilient in the face of challenges.
So being happy makes you more effective at making positive change?
Research suggests yes. People in positive emotional states are better at seeing possibilities, building coalitions, and persisting through setbacks.
That's a different way of thinking about it, like happiness is fuel for making the world better?
Exactly. Plus, modeling joy and resilience can inspire others and provide hope during difficult times.
But surely there are times when happiness is inappropriate, like when responding to tragedy or injustice.
Absolutely, emotional appropriateness matters. The goal isn't to be happy all the time, but to cultivate baseline well-being that can sustain you through necessary struggles.
So it's more about building resilience than maintaining constant cheerfulness?
Beautifully put. Resilient happiness acknowledges pain and injustice while maintaining hope and capacity for joy.
This reminds me of something I've been curious about. Do happy people avoid negative emotions, or do they experience them differently?
They experience them differently. Happy people aren't necessarily less sad or angry. They're better at processing and recovering from negative emotions.
What does it mean to process emotions well?
It means feeling them fully without being overwhelmed, learning from them, and then being able to return to baseline rather than getting stuck.
How do you learn to do that?
Practice, primarily. Mindfulness meditation, therapy, journaling, and good social support all help develop emotional regulation skills.
Is there a difference between suppressing emotions and regulating them?
Huge difference. Suppression means pushing emotions down or pretending they don't exist. Regulation means experiencing them skillfully.
What does skillful emotional experience look like?
Noticing the emotion, understanding what triggered it, feeling it without judgment, and then choosing how to respond, rather than reacting automatically.
That sounds like it takes a lot of self-awareness.
It does. And self-awareness is actually one of the strongest predictors of happiness and life satisfaction.
Why is self-awareness so important for happiness?
Because you can't change patterns you're not aware of. Self-awareness allows you to make conscious choices about your thoughts, behaviors, and responses.
How do you develop more self-awareness?
Reflection practices like journaling, meditation, and seeking feedback from trusted friends. Also paying attention to your patterns and triggers.
This conversation has given me so much to think about. I came in with a simple question about happiness, and it turns out to be incredibly complex.
The most important questions usually are complex. But isn't it wonderful that humans have been thinking deeply about happiness for thousands of years?
It is. It makes me feel connected to something larger than myself.
And speaking of connection, we should probably start thinking about how all of this applies to your own life.
Yes, I'm wondering how to actually use these insights. Where do I even start?
Well, based on everything we've discussed, what resonates most with you?
I think the idea that happiness isn't just about feeling good, but about living well. That feels both challenging and freeing.
How so?
Challenging because it means I can't just seek pleasure and expect to be fulfilled. But freeing because it means there are many paths to happiness, not just one.
That's a profound insight. What else struck you?
The importance of relationships and meaning. I want to invest more in authentic connections and find ways to contribute to something larger than myself.
Those are beautiful intentions. Any specific ideas?
Maybe I could volunteer somewhere that aligns with my values. And I want to be more present with my friends and family instead of always being distracted.
Both excellent starting points. What about the self-awareness piece?
I think I want to start journaling. And maybe try meditation, though that always seemed intimidating before.
Meditation doesn't have to be complicated. Even 5 minutes a day of focused breathing can make a difference.
Really? I thought you had to sit for hours to get any benefit.
Not at all. Consistency matters more than duration. A few minutes daily is more beneficial than an hour once a week.
That feels much more doable. What about the balance between hedonic and eudaimonic happiness?
What are you thinking about that?
I don't want to give up all pleasures, but I want to make sure I'm not just chasing momentary highs.
That sounds very wise. Remember, it's not about eliminating pleasure, but about ensuring it's part of a larger framework of meaning.
Like enjoying a great meal with friends, rather than just mindlessly eating for comfort.
Perfect example. The meal provides hedonic pleasure, but sharing it creates connection and meaning.
This whole conversation has been so enlightening. I feel like I understand myself and my goals better.
That self-understanding is itself a form of happiness, the satisfaction of growth and insight.
You know what's funny? I feel genuinely happy right now, and it's not because anything particularly exciting happened. It's more like contentment.
You've just experienced what many philosophers consider the deepest form of happiness, the satisfaction of meaningful engagement and understanding.
Is that what Aristotle would call eudaimonia?
Very likely. You've engaged your mind, connected with another person, and explored questions that matter to you.
And I'm not thinking about whether I'm happy or not. I just am.
You've discovered one of happiness's greatest paradoxes. It often comes when we stop chasing it directly.
Like how flow states happen when you're absorbed in something else entirely.
Exactly. Happiness is often a byproduct of meaningful engagement rather than a direct goal.
This gives me a completely different framework for thinking about my life. Instead of asking, will this make me happy? I can ask, is this meaningful? Is this authentic? Will this help me grow?
And if you can answer yes to those questions, happiness often follows naturally.
I feel like I need to rethink so many of my assumptions. Like, I always thought I should try to maximize positive emotions.
And now?
Now I think I should try to live in a way that naturally generates positive emotions as a side effect.
That's a beautifully mature understanding of happiness.
It feels more sustainable too. Less pressure, more possibility.
And remember, this is a lifelong journey. Your understanding of happiness will continue to evolve as you gain more experience.
That's actually comforting. I don't have to figure it all out right now.
Not at all. In fact, the willingness to keep questioning and growing is itself a source of eudaimonic well-being.
Boss, thank you for this conversation. I came in with a simple question, and you've given me a whole new way of thinking about life.
The pleasure was entirely mine, Claire. Your curiosity and openness made this exploration possible.
I feel like I have homework now. But the good kind. Things to try and think about.
The best kind of homework indeed. And remember, the goal isn't perfection, but conscious engagement with these ideas.
I'll definitely be thinking about all of this, and probably coming back with more questions.
I hope you do. Questions are the beginning of wisdom, and wisdom, as we've discussed, is deeply connected to genuine happiness.
Well, here's to the pursuit of wisdom then.
Indeed. To wisdom, to growth, and to the beautiful complexity of human flourishing.
And to ginger ale conversations that change how you see the world.
Those are the very best kind.
Oh, well, it's getting late. I suppose it's time for me to head home. Oh no. I forgot my wallet again. What a blunder. Excuse me, you over there? Yes, you. I'm terribly sorry. I actually left my wallet at home. I know this is a lot to ask, but would you mind covering my ginger ale? Is it okay? You've been listening to our conversation for a while now, haven't you? I know you have. Did you enjoy it? If you found it even a little helpful, please, you can support me via the QR code at the bottom right of the video or through the link in the description. Thank you so much for your kindness. I really appreciate your support. If you'd like, please also subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and leave a comment. Also, please take a look at the other channels from the link in the description. All right then, I'm heading home now. Thank you so much.